ビットコイン11月号です。
はい。よろしくお願いします。
参加者は、カンさんとトムさんとダニエル、それぞれ自己紹介をお願いし
Oh, hi. Yes. Hi, I'm Daniel Calvin. I'm an intern in Tokyo working with DidOcean and
Nice, nice.トムさん。
もしもし。
はい。
聞こえますか？
聞こえます。
今、心待ち合わせ室で。
はい。自己紹介と、
ビットオーシャンの塔です。よろしくお願いします。今、周りはちょっとうるさいから。
ビットオーシャンの進捗はいかがでしょうか？
そうですね、今、プラットフォームの方ですね、今もうテスト中なんで、今なんか、20日くらい向けて今、いろいろ頑張ってます。今、なんか ATM の方ですね、今、あさってで、今、なんか日本で1台を今持ってきます。まあもちろんなんか日本も対応しますから、まあお楽しみの形で。
場所はもう決まって
場所は決まってないですね。はい。
じゃあ20日にエクスチェンジがオープンして、で同時にその ATM も
そうです。はい。
楽しみです。カンさんお願いします。
はい、株式会社ライム代表取締役の菅本則です。英語ではすみません、お名前、今回初めての参加の方は、日本語
ダニエルです。日本はわからないです。
今日はバイリンガルで、英語と日本語ちゃんぽんでいきましょう。
はい、わかりました。
ダニエルさんは、ですね、台湾にいらしたんですけど、ビットオーシャンのボードに入られて、で、マウントボックスの、ロイヤーなので、マウントボックス周辺に非常に詳しいという理解です。
はい。
大石さん、
はい、こんにちは。デジマル協会の大石でございます。今日は、あれですね、マウントボックスの件の方ですけど、ちょっとお聞きしたいと思いますので、楽しみにしています。
はい。では、カンさんから、ライムの話を最初にいかがでしょうか。
最近の近所ですか？
はい、ライムでもいいですし、ラスベガスでもいいですし。はい、
そうですね。まずライムなんですが、ちょっと息を潜めている状態です。目立った活動は表立って逆に控えている状況でして、もうすでにお伝えしたかもしれないんですけど、1ヶ月ほどぐらい前にうちの3校の、取引先の銀行のうちの一つが来て、ビットコインに関連する商売は、関係したくないっていうことで、それがちょっと何もしないで、表立っては何もしてないんですけど、水面下では、うちは独自の、ATM の貸し出しとか販売とかも一環として考えてますし、あと一つはフィジカルコインの立ち上げをランニングして、今具体化してメダル屋さんから見積もり取ったり、ホログラムのシール屋さんと話したりしております。
そのフィジカルコインは、アメリカに何社か私見たんですけど、
はい。
独自でやられるんですか、それとも。
完全に独自ですね。
ああ、なるほど。
カサシアスにも連絡したんですけど、
はい。
オーナーの名前はちょっと忘れましたけど、もう、その件はもう手伝いはできないっていうことで、
うーん。
ここ
ユタの会社ですか？
はい、
あの、ライズライズビットコインでなんかユタの会社がフィジカル
ああ、あり
やってたん
ましたね。
ですけど、
あれ手で結構一個一個
やってましたよね。
やってすごい大変そうだなと思ったんですけど。
いろんなメーカーのやつを購入して、まず、えー実際に見て、触って、そし
う
て、まあ、
ん。
結局コンセプトはみんな一緒だっていうことで、
なるほど。
分かってまして、それをうまくどうやって信頼につなげて、一
うん。
般のお客さんで興味ある人に、えー買ってもらえるかっていうところに今いろいろ議論、うちの兄と、あともう一人のスタッフとで議論してます。
あれって本当のゴールドなんですか？
本当のゴールドのところはほとんどないと思いますね。
あります。
まあ、あるとしても、そう歌ってるところもありますね。
うー
うん。
ん。
実際買ってみなきゃわからないんですけど、ただ、プレミアムはすごく高いですね。
うー
う
ん。
ん。なるほどですね。じゃあもう完全にそれを製造は独自で作るってことですね。コインのところからってことですか？
そうですね。非常に安いところ、安
うん。
いコインですね。0.01ビットコインとか、そういうところから始めて、ごめんなさいね。どうも失礼しました。小さい単位のものと、始めようと。まず、やはりフィジカルコインっていうのは、一般のお客さん、一般のその興味ある方が、利用しづらいみたいな感じがするんですね。完全にパスワードでしかビットコインと接触ができないっていう形だと、結構範囲が狭くなってきますんで、それ以外のところで、うちみたいな会社は何かできるんじゃないかなと思って、これをやろうと思ってます。結局は販売する側の信頼ですね、行き着くところは。ホログラムが貼ってあるとか、その製品自身にきちんとビットコインが入ってるかどうかっていうところも大切なんですけど、やはり売る側の基本ポリシーがどうなっているのかっていうところが一番のミソじゃないかなって考えています。
はい。信頼できるディストリビューターであるということが大事ですと。
そうですね。そうです。ですから、うちはどちらかというと、皆さんテクノロジー系の会社がいろんなそのスタートアップで、いろんなサービスをウェブ上でスタートしてるんですけど、うちは逆にそこのところできないですし、そこに頼らないサービス、商品を提供していきたいなと思ってます。非常に似てるところは、うち経験あるんですけど、
はい。
日本で大手の石福さんとか、あと田中貴金属さんのホームページご覧になってみると
はい。
分かると思うんですけど、その彼らの販売っていうのは、金とか銀の、販売は、ものすごくアナログ的なんですね。ファックスで受
う
け付けて、その
ん。
当時のレートを確定させて、全部電話とファックスでやり取りして、発送は郵便局で、賄ってもらうと。どこもその、どうもすいません、ちょっとうるさいところで。
はい。
そのウェブ通してっていうところとはちょっとかけ離れたところでの、ニーズがあるっていうところは感じてます。
なるほど。
そういったところも、うちでニッチを、開拓できるようになったら、よりビットコインも広めることできるんじゃないかなって考えてます。
確かに。もしかしたらばそこが一番お金と時間を持っている層かもしれないですよね。
はい、私もそう思います。やっぱりまず大きく試してみたいなっていうところは、エクスチェンジは少しずつ金額を増やしてやっていくっていうところが多いと思うんですけど、中にはやっぱり10万、50、1万円やってもしょうがないんで、10万、50万、100万円でスタートしたいなっていうお客さんもたくさんいると思うんですね。
はい。
そこのところは、うちは実務の会社ですから、実際のものを輸入して販売している会社で、問題があったらクレームにきちっと対応するっていうスタンスでやってきてますので、そこのところをぜひ活かしたいなと思ってます。ですから、株式会社ライムはこういう会社だ、こういう会社で、こういう人材がいて、こういうサービスを新たに始めましたっていうのを、オープンに訴えていきたいなと思っています。
はい。
はい。
はい。ラマシエの方は稼働してるんですか？
ダマシエですか？
ラマス。
ああ、ではラマス、ごめんなさい。ラマスは今すぐ隣にあって、もういつでも稼働できます。ちょっとこの場を借りてお伝えしたいんですけど、どなたか借りたい方、別に金額とか必要ありませんから、よかったら声かけてください。うちとして今、鈴鹿で何かどうこうのするっていうのはちょっと今控えたいので、できればGMO さんはやっぱり一般の人は知らないので、もうちょっと大手なところですね。理想的なのは楽天とかが採用したっていう発表があったら、うちはもうどんどん前面に前に出してやっていきたいですね。それまではちょっとと思います。
はい。先日、日経新聞になんかポジティブなニュースが、出てたって聞いたんですけど、2、3日前ですか。
それ見てないです。
なので、ウェブにもありましたんで、後でリンクを送ります。
お願いします。
単純に単純になんていうんですかね、一般化しつつあるなっていう理解だったんですけどね。
はい。
で、あとさらになんか、実は金融庁が割と好意的になってきたっていう話も聞いたんですけど、それはちょっと後でまた、オフラインでお伝えしますので。
わかりました。
ラスベガスの、印象とか、ラスベガスで主に何が一番インパクトあったかとか、どんな感じでしょうか。
ですね、行ってすごく良かったって結論付けてますが、行ってちょっと拍子抜けしたのは、思ったより人が少なかったっていうことですね。世界最大のカンファレンスだっていうところで、実際行ってみたら、一番多い、セミナーで、どうでしょう、ざっと見て300人ぐらいじゃないかなって感じしました。本当は1000人くらいいるんじゃないかなっていうところを勝手に思ってたんですけど、そこのところが、意外だったなと。でも、やはり本間さんもご覧になったように、一人一人がものすごく熱意持って世の中変えるんだっていうような熱意持って話してたのはすごく刺激になりましたし、そしてずっと技術的なことでこれよくわかんないなっていうことが実際に行って聞いてみることによって、点と点が結ばれて理解が深まったなっていうメリットはすごく大きかったと思います。
私も同じ感想でして、マイアミの方がやっぱり多かったんですよね。去年は実はラスベガスが多分最大だったと思うんですよ。ほとんどカンファレンスはなかったので。で、去年、いろんないい出会いがあって、なんか、去年のラスベガスで、ビットシェアズ X にジョインしたとかっていう人に何人か会ったりしてて、割とビジネスが生まれたらしいんですね。だったんですけど、今回のラスベガスは非常に人数少なくて、で、値段が下がってるからじゃないとかいう話とか、よくわかんなかったんですけど、なので自分的にはおそらくテキサスが来年はいいだろうなと思います。あと、テルアビブですね。で、インサイドビットコインズはちょっと数やりすぎてんじゃないかなっていう気が個人的にはしたんですけど、 ただ、実際、ビットシェアーズにも会えたし、カウンターパーティーとか、オーバーストックドットコムの話とか、割と重要なことがたくさん起きたので、実は。ラスベガスとテルアビブは非常に、インプット的には大きかったですね。いろんなことが分かりました。
ちょっと付け加えたいんですが、アメリカの中学と高校の友達を連れてのラスベガスの参加でした。私は同じ学校にいたんですけど、彼は私と違って、アメリカ人でコネチカット州在住で、要はニューイングランドの保守的なエスタブリッシュメント的な教育関係がいっぱいあるところで育って、そして、高学歴であるんですね。で、彼がそれなりもう当然ウェブもいっぱい使ってますし、情報っていう意味では自ら探しに行くノウハウを得てて、ビットコインについてどれだけ知ってるかなっていう反応を見ようと思って彼にも来てもらったんですけど、ほとんど知りませんでした。今回カンファレンスに来てかなり理解が深まって、興味を持ったって言ってくれたんですけど、ただ最初のリアクションとしてはやっぱりこれアメリカで浸透するにはかなり時間がかかるんじゃないかなっていうような一般的な見方をしてました。そこはまたそこで面白かったなと思います。
そうですね、私もそう思ってまして、アメリカは今年はたくさん行ったので、結局マイアミとテキサスとマンハッタンとラスベガスに行って感じたのが、やっぱりマスアダプションはしてないんですよ。どんなにプロフェッショナルが多くても。なので、やっぱりまだなんですよね。ネットスケール 2.0 に当たるところまではまだ行ってなくて、それをみんな探してるとは言われてますね。
アメリカも多分、やっぱりアメリカエクスチェンジがないですよね、まずね。エクスチェンジがないと多分、あれなので、ビットライセンス早く立ち上がって、エクスチェンジができるのが、来年の春ぐらいだというふうには言われてるから、そこまではちょっと、こんな感じかなというふうに見てますね。
Daniel, I like to know how adoption is going in the United States. As far as I see, no exchange in the US, but Coinbase is very user-friendly.
Yes.
And Zappo has joined. So to me, it looks no problem to buy Bitcoin in US because of Coinbase and Zappo.
Yes.
But what do you think?
There was also, reading CoinDesk, I heard about Buttercoin, which was released and maybe do something similar to both Coinbase and Zappo. I think now the issue with the U.S. is there's still a lot of uncertainty, right? Like you had Hong Kong come out and say they're going to take a hands-off approach, and even in Japan, the government has kind of said they're going to take a hands-off approach. And the U.S., I think everyone kind of knows they're not going to be hands-off. They're just waiting to make a move, and we don't know exactly what it's going to be. There was, I think, a ruling this week or end of last week, where FinCEN made clear that other types of Bitcoin businesses, a broader array of Bitcoin businesses, now have to be registered as money transmitters. So that was a surprise to a lot of businesses. And I think for the U.S. Bitcoin world, it's those type of surprises, and it's things like the bit license that are causing people to say, you know what, I think it's better to focus on maybe Europe or Asia or other parts of the world first. But so I think the U.S. is growing slower, but at the same time, it's the biggest economy in the world, so of course people want to move in. But from my standpoint, I'd rather be doing business here. I think the U.S. is not going to be at the forefront of Bitcoin. At least the U.S. market won't be, simply because I think there's more uncertainty there than everywhere else.
I agree with Bit license in New York, but I'm hearing that Texas and California is better than New York.
Yes, I would agree. I don't know. I haven't really looked into Texas or what they propose, but I know what New York proposes is very onerous, very all-encompassing regulation. But what Bitcoin companies should do, and I think a lot have said they're going to do, is just put in their terms and conditions, our service is not available to New York residents. So, right, you would have to get a bank account in another state to take advantage of an exchange that offers services in America. So that may be what happens. Some states will say, okay, you could do business here, and other states will say no. But I also don't think that Benjamin Lawsky, the guy who proposed the bit license, really fully understands how it would work either. So again, it's just a lot of uncertainty, so we have to wait and see.
It's also surprising because, as far as I see, Bit Angels and Mark Andreessen Horowitz and venture capital-wise, America is still the best country.
Yes.
And many venture business, many ideas, many entrepreneurship. As far as I see, American is still, even if they're not good markets, but still, engineering-wise, technology-wise, Stanford, MIT, they are developing a lot, a bunch of ideas, and Bit Angels are investing.
I think all the resources are there. It's just a question of how much, how much the government's going to hold everything back at this point. And I do think that I think people are pretty much in agreement that if you can start a Bitcoin business, from a regulatory standpoint, the U.S. is probably the most difficult market to start.
I hear the exchange needs to have 50 states license about the money transmitter.
Yes.
So I hear that 20,000 $20,000 to $20,000 about only one state.
It can. So in America, you have 50 state governments, and you have a federal government. And in order to do business as an exchange, you need a money transmitter license.
Yeah.
And in fact, as FinCEN, the federal regulatory body in America, in this area stated last week, a whole broad array of Bitcoin businesses need money transmitter licenses, not just exchanges. So if you want to do business everywhere in the U.S., you have to get a money transmitter license in every state. And every state has a different set of laws, and there's three different types of money transmitter schemes the states have adopted. But you have to figure out what those three are broadly, and then apply in each separate state and go through all of the hurdles. And the legal fees are huge, right?
I hear the Coinbase, the circle, they have funded $30 million or like so. They spend a lot of money to the not to the legal fee.
Yes.
Not engineering, just legal fees. most of the money is gone.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, Bitcoin, you need good engineering and a good legal side.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading something about Kraken too, which is not operating in the U.S., I believe, and they said that they raised all this money and a lot of it was to go toward legal. So there's no question. There's I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty in the U.S. regarding what new regulations they might pass. But there's also current uncertainty with how they apply existing regulation, as the new, as FinCEN just showed us with the current, their current application of money transmitter requirements. So it's not. You not only need lawyers to get all the licenses in place, but you'll also need lawyers and legal fees going forward to ensure that you're complying as the economy develops and as policymakers in Washington decide that they want to change things or they want to regulate Bitcoin in a certain way, or they've kind of, for the most part, they haven't taken a very heavy hand to it, but Congress could take up the issue in the next legislative session. We just kind of have to wait and see.
Congress will do something.
Maybe. I guess fortunately for Bitcoin in a way, if you don't want any regulation, Congress has kind of been deadlocked in the U.S. and hasn't been able to get much of anything done. So it's good in one respect because it gives Bitcoin a chance to grow without being cut down by Congress. But then in another sense, it's not good because Congress has all these other important issues they're worried about, and they can't even get to discussing Bitcoin, where they could possibly make the decision to not regulate it in a certain way or have some regulation this way, which would give a lot of clarity to investors and to people looking to do business in the sector, right? And that's why New York states have kind of stepped in. And New York, which is the financial capital of America. That's why they kind of stepped in and started the process, which, as we've seen, it's like the worst. It's like the worst piece of legislation, that you could have asked for. I really feel that Benjamin Lawsky knew what he wanted to do. The banks told him exactly what kind of legislation they wanted, and so he engaged the community and asked everyone their opinion, and then in the end he went and did what he wanted anyway, and just made it seem like he consulted us all. So,
as far as I see, America is always going too much and going back again, and they test both left and right, far left and far right. So, but as far as I see, Americans are very productive, constructive. So I'm wondering how eventually America will get some consensus, or because if we agree with bit license, no business in New York.
Right. Yeah, a lot of businesses could just say we don't want to. Our service is not available to New York residents. But even if that happened, it's not the end of the world. I mean, New Yorkers do this for all types of things. For instance, there's lots of people in New York who have relatives in other states close by. And for instance, if you want to get a car, have car insurance, very expensive in New York. So you just register the car at your aunt's house in New Jersey, where it's much cheaper, and you drive around with a New Jersey license plate, right? So I would just go to my aunt's house in New Jersey, and I get a bank account using her address, right? Make that my address, get my New Jersey license, and it's really not that hard to do. So fortunately, in America, people can do those types of things fairly easily, and it could be a race to the bottom in terms of regulation from that standpoint. But for a lot of people, it would make it difficult for them who don't have relatives outside of the state, or in western states that are very large, right? Like Texas, for example. If you're in the middle of Texas, you have to drive for a whole day to get to the next state. But in the Northeast, New York, where a lot of people are, they can kind of play states against each other. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
But there are 50 states, and why is New York always outstanding? Is New York actually leading the
So New York is
discussion?
usually what you see in America in terms of banks. It's banks. But New York and California are the two biggest states in terms of population. And a lot of times with regulation, you'll see them pass new things, and then it'll work its way to other states, right? For example, one of them is the no smoking in bars. It started in New York and California, and worked its way everywhere. With Bitcoin, it's certainly because of banks. And the governor in the state does not want to offend the banks who generate a lot of revenue. And it was very simple for them to get an unelected official like Benjamin Lawsky to basically create regulations, right? There's no elected official that's making this. It's some guy who was picked by the governor who was elected, but in New York,
it's reasonable for New York to behave like that. In that case, we should hope for California, but Kraken is not, even Kraken cannot do business as they like to do.
Right.
So is California state as bad as New York State, regulation-wise?
I don't think they would pass anything as bad as New York has. The bill in New York was drafted by bankers. It's clear when you read it. Not that California doesn't have influence from bankers and that kind of thing, but New York kind of sees itself as a pioneer in terms of finance, right? That's where Wall Street is. That's where all the big banks call their call home. So they would want to try to pave the way in making this happen. I think because California has a more robust tech center, politicians in California would have more pressure put on them from Silicon Valley and the other tech centers to maybe support Bitcoin. New York does have a tech community they've been really trying to develop in recent years. I just don't think that they really saw Bitcoin coming, and the tech community is still just very, very small interest group compared to the finance industry.
Right.
Yeah.
That's basically the two things that the United States has. They have the banks and Silicon Valley, Wall Street and the Silicon Valley.
Yes.
Everything else is just farmers and Hawaii.
What about Boston? As far as I say, at least they have MIT and Harvard and other influential universities.
Some good startups came out of MIT.
Yeah. I mean,
Gavin Anderson lives in Boston.
Yeah, I think he was from Amherst, Massachusetts. I mean, there's a lot of smart people. There's no question in the education sector, But I feel like a lot of people from MIT are going to go and work out in Silicon Valley when they graduate, right? People from Harvard, MIT. I mean,
I think America's so big. It's just huge lines.
Like Mark Zuckerberg, for instance, he was at Harvard and he started Facebook there, and then he moved out to California and started doing it out there. I think it's partially a cultural difference too. Universities are maybe like, I don't know, an oasis, right? Kind of giving kind of a window as to what it might be like in Silicon Valley, where everyone kind of thinks that way.
Thanks to you, I have some image about states' behavior. What about federal government? Is Fed as powerful? Is Washington D.C. much more powerful, or New York bit licenses as influential as federal government?
Well, the federal government's very powerful because they have a ton of money. more money than states. And the federal government, though, is only supposed to have limited powers. But one thing they can pass laws on is anything that affects interstate commerce. And this is what they usually use. So Bitcoin certainly affects interstate commerce, which means the federal government has jurisdiction, and they can regulate it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the federal government weigh in. In fact, I think FinCEN has been one of the more active.
Charlie Shroud.
Yeah.
Silk Road.
Yes, they've been one of the more active regulatory bodies, and you know, the federal government has offices everywhere. The most active office is in New York, the Southern District of New York, the prosecutor's office there. The guy, his name is Preet Bharara. He's the guy who went after Charlie Shrem, and he's also trying to make a name for himself as you know, as like a guy who's policing the internet, right? So I think even in that respect, that they because they're in New York, they also communicate very closely with the financial, with the banks and other financial interests there. So whether it comes from New York state government or it comes from the federal government, I have no doubt that you know, the banking interests in New York have a very influential role in the policy that gets supported.
Thank you.
He's going to send you a bill.
So, shall we talk about Mt. Gox? Well, do you have any topic to broadcast? Now we are broadcasting.
What do you want to know?
I don't want to.
So we will have a Mt. Gox creditors meeting this month, and first time we were very disappointed because no information, no progress. Creditor should be sorry, Mr. Kobayashi should work on behalf of creditors, but he looks like working for Marcaperas. that looked very strange, and after several months, as far as I know, there's no progress, no information at all still. And what should we do? Do you have any opinion about Mt. Gox creditors meeting?
I speculate that we're going to have no progress. The only potential thing we might get is the website that creditors can use to file a claim will be unveiled. I think, but I don't even think he'll have that finished. I think it's going to be more of the same, and we'll show up, maybe see the website, but certainly see another piece of paper with a whole bunch of bills on it, a whole bunch of invoices on it, showing us how much money he spent, and maybe or maybe not telling us where exactly it went. I think that's what we're going to be faced with, and what we do about it, you know, it really depends on how well you can get people organized, and whether we can come up with money to pay, you know, some Japanese law firm to file a motion to get a creditors committee together, which is a possibility, but maybe very difficult to pull off. It would certainly be embarrassing for Kobayashi to file that motion and push for it. My Japanese legal counsel has told me that no, that this has never been done in Japan before, despite the remedy being, you know, on the books. So that's a possibility. But I guess the most interesting thing will be for us to see how much money he spent and who it's going to.
You're a professional lawyer, therefore you have many cases. Maybe you have a better understanding than non-lawyers.
Yes.
And so that's why I think that you can improve the situation as because it looks simply wrong. Kobayashi is not working effectively, and it sounds not healthy.
Yeah, I really don't know what Kobayashi is thinking. I mean, without saying this in the safest terms possible, without accusing Mark or Tobin of anything, right? Putting them in the best light possible. If I were Kobayashi, I would not have given any money to Tobin or had them do anything because it just looks bad.
Yes.
And so I don't know why he did that. And from what it appears from articles I read and things on the internet, it appears he's continuing to use them for all types of things. And you know, we should. I just don't know. It doesn't look very good for him. I mean, every lawyer I've spoken to about it kind of says the same thing. So I really think that creditors should do something about it, but it's not really easy to organize everyone, and then it's a cost to hire some lawyers to make this motion. But I really think it has to happen at this point because nothing's getting done, money's getting spent.
Excuse me. This is Moto. I'm a creditor as well, and I've got a question.
Sure.
That creditors, if they got together, perhaps may create enough power to have a say.
Yes.
I know it's hard to say, but to what extent are you saying get together?
So from what I understand about this process, there is something called a creditors committee that can be formed. This is very common in U.S. bankruptcy. Japan bankruptcy law is taken from U.S. bankruptcy law, but in Japan it's never used. It's never been used. So I don't know much about how it would be applied or looked at. But basically, creditors get together, and a majority of the creditors have to agree that they want oversight power over the trustee, and they would hire a team of lawyers to make this motion in court and state that they want oversight power for whatever reason, and that they have a certain proof that a majority of creditors agree, and they'd file it in court, and the judge would either approve or deny it. But from what I understand about it, once you get approved, then, for instance, if Kobayashi wanted to hire someone to do something, we would know about it, and we would be able to say whether he could do that or not. And I think, given the way that he's conducted this this bankruptcy, I think that's something we should have. The difficult thing is, and this doesn't make sense to me, from what I understand, from what I've been told, you need a majority of creditors, not a majority of the money that creditors represent, which would be very easy for us to get, but a majority of creditors. And because the creditors are all over the world, mostly not in Japan, and because there were so many creditors that had, like, no money, like hardly any money in their account, it makes no sense. I mean, Kobayashi mailed everyone a piece of paper in the mail, which I didn't get, by the way. But someone at Ditto, a friend of in China, he had 100 yen in his Mt. Gox account when it went bankrupt. And he received a postcard in the mail from Kobayashi. I mean, why not just give him back the 100 yen, right? So.
Good point.
Yeah. So that's where we are. And what I would do at this point is I would just get as many creditors together as possible, get the big ones together, and make the motion. And if they reject it, I mean, then they reject it. It's just a matter of getting the people and then getting you know, the money together to pay a lawyer to fight it, right? So.
So to make a committee, majority of creditors are required. In U.S., number-wise. In U.S., is it amount-wise?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure offhand. I believe it's amount-wise. But I see. I'm handicapped here because I can't read I don't read Japanese, and so I'm relying on other people to get me information. And I've also been busy with a number of other things, and not really focusing on the creditor committee. But I think I'm going to get another opinion on this, and I think after this next creditors committee, this next meeting we have at the end of this month, we may have to. The time may be right to, you know, make the motion and at least see what we can do.
I see. So.
Besides of the bankruptcy, some group of the in England, so the groups sued to the Mt. Gox for the bankruptcy. I read the email from the law firms. So yeah, and I never heard any progress like that.
You're saying someone sued Mark?
So Mark or Mt. Gox?
They sued him personally. Well, I mean, from what I read, and you know, there's what I understand, based on my understanding from everything I know about Mt. Gox, you know, someone could and it might, you know, sue Mark personally for, you know, gross negligence in how he ran the exchange. And I don't know what kind of progress these guys have made, but I do know that the Japanese legal system tends to be slow, is what we've seen with Mt. Gox and you know, with the bankruptcy. So I would expect another month or two before we get any more news about that lawsuit. But yeah, I'm interested too to see what happens. I'm very interested to see too, and I don't know if this is a part of the suit, but to see if the court would say that Mt. Gox is the same thing as Tiban. Because if a judge in this case, which is a different judge than the bankruptcy, were to say that Mt. Gox and Tiban are the same company, that would put Kobayashi in a very difficult position, because he said they're separate and it's giving Tiban work. And that would make it, I think, much easier for a motion to have oversight over Kobayashi to win, right? Because another judge would have disagreed with this position Kobayashi took.
So are you saying that you like to replace Kobayashi with new person?
Yes, but I think more importantly, I'd like to see a group of creditors, you know, 5 to 10 creditors, representative of all creditors, be able to oversee what Kobayashi or any other trustee does. That's better.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
But is it possible, because numbers are many, 120,000?
Yeah. It's definitely possible to get the support of 50%, 51% of the money. I think it's almost impossible to get, you know, 51% of the people. But I think that so many people had very, very little money in Mt. Gox, right? The majority of people had fewer than 10 bitcoins.
Yes, I did hear about that. I did hear about the news about several people suing Mark Karpeles personally, and I asked about that to my lawyer in Tokyo. He has not much knowledge about Bitcoin, but he's been very supportive, and he's been following much of the news. And I just sent a text to Hangout of his reply. And what his personal reaction was that it's not going to make much difference. The only difference that will make was the only effect that it would have was to put pressure on our Capellas personally. That's about it. That was his reply. By the way, these are the text that I just sent is exactly a copy of what he told me, what he replied to me. I think our company invested quite a lot. We lost quite a lot. At the time of bankruptcy, we had about 1,000, just a bit over 1,000 ETC. But that was all paper profit, just on the books. So we don't have much grief, and I'm still so optimistic about Bitcoin and very excited, and I would like to pursue. So I've been doing business for about 20 years, trading, importing things and selling. And I've had many cases. Every once in a while, I experience my customer going broke, going bankruptcy, or they just disappear. And I go through all this process, and I know about handling the bankruptcies and how it is so hard and so slow in Japan. So I had pretty much given up on this issue, Mt. Gox as well. But I am here. It's great to have met you, Daniel. If there is anything that, if my participation and my future input can change anything, I'd love to, to do something together, whether with Mr. Hama and Mr. Oishi as well.
Absolutely, yeah. We should exchange contact info and make sure we get together. But before and after the next creditor meeting, and see what we can do to get some good results on this. I think it's I'd love to work with you on it if we can.
Okay.
So at least if you are handicapped with Japanese language, I will do my best.
I could really use the help. I appreciate it. Yeah. So definitely let's be in touch, and I'll keep you informed of what I know, and we'll see if there's some way we can put pressure on Kobayashi, to take some good action on this.
Right. Do you have any comment?
No comment.
I'm wondering, you like to say something, that's why you come here, I guess. So please propose any topic you like to discuss.
So I guess my security firm has been investigating the hacking incident at Mt. Gox, and we were doing analysis into reconciling blockchain data against the Mt. Gox database that we kind of assembled.
So are you working on behalf of Kobayashi?
No.
It's not their business, but your business, doing with your own money?
I mean, we had some financial help But mostly we're doing it on behalf of the creditor community.
Wow.
Community.
Community,
Right.
I see. So in that case, if committee is existing, it's much better, right?
Of course. I mean, there should absolutely be an independent, I guess, audit of the Mt. Gox database. And if we have the creditors committee that Daniel's looking to form, that would be much more possible. So far, Kobayashi hasn't released one bit of information about what happened.
So I hear that Mt. Gox claim that they have lost 850,000 Bitcoin. Somebody was saying that Mt. Gox is moving the money. I mean, moving Bitcoin. That money transferred was huge amount-wise, like several, maybe 800,000 Bitcoin. So that's why somebody was guessing that Markup Plus did not lose, but they had almost 800,000 BTC. So I'm wondering, losing 850,000 Bitcoin is strange, but finding 200,000 Bitcoin is also strange.
Yes.
And the critical point is, what is 650,000 Bitcoin? And if you have some information around 850,000 and 200,000 and 650,000, it's a very critical information, and Kobayashi should answer what happens.
My understanding of the 202,000 Bitcoins. Well, so my understanding is that 200,000 Bitcoins were in. So I guess a little bit background first. Originally, Mt. Gox was using the Bitcoin Qt software for its backend, and at some point, Mark implemented his own Bitcoin implementation in PHP, and he was storing all the keys in the database, and that's what eventually got hacked and drained down to only 2,000 coins remaining. But in that original Bitcoin D wallet they had were 200,000 coins that apparently hadn't been moved since 2011, whatever point they migrated to that new system. So it actually looks that they were just kind of sitting in storage and kind of forgotten about. I'm not sure how you can just forget about 200,000 Bitcoins, but apparently it happens. And that's actually good that they recovered 200. No, I mean seriously, they could have just said we had nothing, we had zero, right? And then we probably wouldn't even be having this discussion, right? Because now there's still 200,000 Bitcoins to, I guess, use for either bankruptcy distribution or rehabilitation. Right?
Yeah, we have still 220 Bitcoin, 200,000 Bitcoins. So the still Bitcoin remains at the blockchains. You can assure to the what address is what address have the 220,000. Right. But Mr. Kobayashi cannot open the addresses or any informations.
I think the addresses of where the 200,000 Bitcoins are stored are publicly known. I think we've easily found those. The much harder question to answer is about the other Bitcoins, the ones that were lost, the ones that were hacked.
Where are those cold wallet addresses?
Right.
If we had those, the Bitcoin community could be doing a lot of work on the blockchain.
Yes.
That being said, though, even if you do have a database, it is no easy task to reconcile it against the blockchain. Right? You're talking about millions of wallet addresses, and Mt. Gox was the largest Bitcoin exchange for years. So probably the amount of Bitcoins that went through Mt. Gox is more than all the Bitcoins that exist, right? Meaning you have to start with the entire blockchain and kind of work your way down to find these 600,000 Bitcoins. And it's millions of addresses and millions of transactions, and it is a huge task. But we've been doing our best, and we've made a lot of progress. But you know, without the support of Mt. Gox to, you know, basically support us in this investigation, we don't have the complete data, right? And that's what we're doing. So we're doing as much as we can with the tools and data and resources we have.
I see. So in that case, best way is to make a committee and talking with Kobayashi. That is the best way.
Yeah, that's what why we originally started talking to Daniel, because you know, we'd like to approach Kobayashi, but it seems he already hired some other companies to invest and investigate, and they won't, you know, cooperate or release any information. So that's why we're doing it on our own, you know, just as creditors interested in.
What the information you want most to investigate the lost Bitcoins from the Kobayashi may open some informations?
I think it was already publicly released what the list of all the Bitcoin transactions from Mt. Gox, all the way from, I think, 2010 or 2011, whenever they started that law, to almost around the time that Mt. Gox shut down. We have that entire transaction history, which it was leaked publicly several months ago. But what we don't have is the full list of Mt. Gox wallet addresses, right? And if we had that, then we could analyze all the data of all the blockchain and, you know, the millions and millions and millions of transactions, and then, you know, maybe we say, okay, these transactions reconcile, these transactions don't reconcile, and, you know, here are some addresses where these coins are. But even if you do that, then it's still a question of, well, who controls these addresses, right? I mean, there have been other cases where other hacking incidents, you know, it's clear. Okay, here are the stolen Bitcoins. You know, they're all right here in this address. Who controls it? We don't know.
But then you can kind of blacklist that address, right? The big name exchanges aren't going to deal with them, and you could, you know, you can still follow them.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's a standoff, I guess, right?
No matter, I mean, okay, say they move that coin and you know, split it into 100 other wallets and then mix it with all kinds of other coins. At some point, it's the nature of Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is like the honey badger, it just does whatever it wants. And, you know, the truth is, those Bitcoins, recovering them, you know, while there is a chance of recovering some of them, you know, it's Bitcoin, right? Once you steal Bitcoin, it's very difficult to get it back.
But I see that Crash does 120,000, and they have many addresses. But the address of Mt. Gox wallet is much less.
Yes.
Oh,
Number-wise.
no, they have millions and millions of wallet addresses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there are a number of things, right? Every time people deposit Bitcoins in Mt. Gox, every account, every deposit had a unique address, a new address every time. So those 120,000 accounts, if they had maybe, for example, 10 deposits each, that's 1.2 million addresses. Then, internally inside Mt. Gox, it got split into, you know, different addresses and all kinds of internal transactions. Kind of like, you know, if you deposit 100 Bitcoins into your account, it would be split into 10 wallets of 10 Bitcoins each. And each one of those 10 wallets would have a unique address, right? Then, when you want to go to withdraw money from Mt. Gox would create change addresses, right? So then you have another several million addresses. And then, this is only considering the hot wallet. Then you also have the complicated cold storage system, which also had probably 1 million addresses.
Yeah.
So you can understand why you haven't heard where these 600,000 bitcoins were, is because it is a very difficult question to answer.
But as far as I guess, if it's called hot wallet, there can be many addresses. But cold wallet, I cannot imagine they have a very many addresses.
They do.
Really. So it's gonna take a lot of time.
See, the problem is if you just put 100,000 bitcoins in one address, you have a very difficult time sending that out for when you do customer withdrawals. You need to have many outputs, right, to send. That's why Mt. Gox would always split the coins into smaller amounts, like 10 bitcoins each. So if you have 100,000 bitcoins and you want to withdraw 1 bitcoin, then that means I have to send you one and send 999,999 to a change address. Wait for one confirmation. Then I can spend that 999,000. Right? That's why it needs to be split into many addresses.
Oh.
I mean, this is just how Bitcoin works, right?
I see.
And then, you know, there are many other issues on top of it, which makes Mt. Gox harder to investigate because they had different types of Bitcoin systems, different types of databases, different types of, you know, key management, hot wallets, cold wallets. You know, they were kind of evolving as Bitcoin was evolving. You know, and then there were multiple hacks over multiple years. People stole money here, things happened here, and you know, we have to investigate it all to understand what really happened. And it's a very big project.
I see. But we need to make a team, professional team, who has the ability to track the transaction. At least I'd like to understand how difficult it is. And after hearing from you, I imagine that it's much more complicated than I was thinking. But still, you have a many deeper understanding, and it's worthwhile to talk with Kobayashi about this topic.
I think Kobayashi is probably doing his own investigation with his own engineers, and obviously the Japanese police have been doing their own investigation as well. The more people that we talk to and meet and hear the questions they ask, I'm always thinking, those are the questions we were thinking of like 4 months ago, right? So I can understand everybody finds something out and then they realize, like the more you find out, the more you realize it's much more bigger than you were originally envisioning it to be. But you know, I'm confident that our team is the most far along figuring out what actually happened in Mt. Gox. And we do have some preliminary findings that we can't really release yet. We're hoping to, you know, work with Daniel's creditors committee to get official permission to work on this with Mt. Gox. And it's going to take time. It's going to take a long time. You know, analyzing the data is going to take a long time. Reforming the creditors committee is going to take a long time. And probably when we're all done, we'll have a report that's 100 pages thick, and it just says, okay, here are the bitcoins, right? We don't know who has those bitcoins.
Right, and then
and then what? That's it, right? So,
and we're hoping too that maybe we can make an approach to Kobayashi without having to go to the court, get a creditors committee, and we'll continue to push for that. But if not, if he doesn't want to, I think this is really the only way. And it's not just expenditures, right, that he's making. I mean, that's really annoying, right? Not knowing what he's spending money on. A lot of it, cash going to things we think it maybe shouldn't be going to. The real important thing is what Jay is talking about. It's getting a hold of the investigation and getting a grip on where the coins went, so we can all understand, right? That's what's most important.
I see. So making committee and I hope that healthy conversation, healthy discussion with Kobayashi is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And if Kobayashi rejects discussion, it's wasting everybody's money and time, especially he's paying for Marcapelas. So the best way, urgent way is to talk with him in a productive way.
Yes, I agree.
I think, you know, the money that Mt. Gox is paying to bond for might, you know, it might have some prior Mt. Gox obligations that we don't know about. Right? It might have some old contracts that they've entered into. Because I think Tibon actually did a lot of things on behalf of Mt. Gox.
Mm-hmm.
So if they need to, you know, if they're paying for office space or renting space in a data center, who knows what? I don't know. I have no clue. But you know, it might not be as bad as it seems, right? It's just a lack of transparency is the problem. If we had like an itemized breakdown.
At the same time, because we don't have transparency, I mean, from how everything looks, it looks as though Tibon was the same company as Mt. Gox. It was just playing a shell game, right? But and I, you know, even giving the benefit of the doubt here, why don't we have all the facts to be able to make that decision? I mean, every lawyer I've talked to has said that it looks very suspicious, and they don't really respect that corporate structure that they had set up. And so I'm very interested in understanding why Kobayashi did. This is not to, you know, those are just the facts about how things look. So yes, there may be very good reasons, and you know, we should know them, so we're not stuck speculating and. You know, transparency is key, I guess.
I see. Did you try to contact with Kobayashi before?
Yes. So we had contacted him with BitOcean, but we, that's, you know, that's like a separate issue.
I see.
Yeah.
And as a BitOcean, you have other agenda, and did you talk with Kobayashi around that separate issue?
Yeah, yes, but he's not really, you know, he's not exactly the most receptive person to these things. So what the plan with BitOcean was you know, Kobayashi wanted us to sign this non-disclosure agreement that basically forbade us from even saying we signed a non-disclosure agreement, and then we just you know, we realized the best thing for us to do was, once we, you know, had discussed what we wanted from him and our plans, was to build the exchange. So then you know, like, part of our plan was to give people a stake in what we were building. So we have a much stronger bargaining position once we've actually built something, right? So that's what we decided to focus on first, you know, and we realized it'd be a long time before there was any resolution to this. So that's kind of where things still stand.
So are you saying that you originally liked to buy Mt. Gox, then you have a much power, but it's very complicated and it's going to take a lot of time, so that's why you quit buying Mt. Gox?
No, it's not that we quit buying. It's more that to continue negotiations and continue, you know, to get a leg up, to maybe give Kobayashi something he wants, it's better if we have an operating business, right? So the next step in the plan is, okay, let's get something together and then come back to the table with something that's actually a business that's up and running, and then we'll have a better chance of being able to offer something of value to everyone, or, you know, to Kobayashi in exchange for the assets. So that was kind of the strategy.
Could you please repeat your strategy again?
So the strategy is to get a business in operation, and then go to Kobayashi to bid on the assets, right? And because before we didn't have an exchange that's running, and in fact still now we're in preparation for it. But once we have something launched, then we go to Kobayashi to buy the assets, because part of what our offer was to give equity to in exchange for assets. So the equity is worth more when you have a business that's running than when you don't have one yet, right?
It sounds reasonable. So you will start 20th of November, and then you have asset of DeepOcean, then you have a better position to deal with Kobayashi to buy Mt. Gox.
Yeah, that's the logic. Yes.
I see. Great. So in that case, you sound like a best position for the committee.
Oh, I hope so. We'll see. Well, there's still a lot up in the air with the committee, and my opinion is I'd like to be part of it. I don't know if the motion will be accepted if we do make one, but I think it would at least have maybe some kind of influence over the trustee who might say, well, I better do, I should do something to at least keep creditors informed, or engage them more than I have, which could be hiring with security to.
Actually, we are lucky to have Roger in Tokyo.
Yeah.
So he's almost representing Bitcoin community.
Yes.
So actually, it sounds reasonable to make a committee with Roger and you and some Japanese as a translator to Kobayashi.
Yeah, I think it does sound reasonable. So let's see what happens over the next month, and definitely keep everyone informed as to what we're doing, and try to get all the pieces ready to maybe file a motion in court if that's what looks like we need to do after the next meeting.
Great. Thank you very much for your vision, and so shall we wait for the next meeting?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the best plan of action.
Great. So we are rather influential to Japanese community. So I please work together.
Definitely, you guys. If we get a committee, you guys should be on it too. I think it has to have between 5 and 10 members. So there's a lot of room for other people to be on it. If we, maybe the guy who ran Bitcoin Builder, I think, is actually the largest creditor. He's in California, so that's another person who, maybe we could ask.
Great. Thank you very much for today's meeting.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Alrighty.
Do you like other comments?
Oh no, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, once you do get the creditors committee formed, you're going to need a full audit to understand where all the transactions went. So.
Thank you very much. I'm very optimistic now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.